Hi everyone, how are you? Hope you all are doing good. In this video, I'm not sharing screen because I'm going to talk about little theoretical. Um, so, uh, so before I start to next week, I'll in the next video basically I'll talk about clinical research and how clinical research usually helps a lot in the CI or in the consulting space. So to do that, I thought that let's start with some basic. Let's talk about drug development process. What are all the stages? Because that's something which is very important to learn or to know about before we start with the process or learning about clinical research, CI, landscape, and all those sort of things. So talking about basics is very important. Now, I'll be looking into my notes and discussing a lot of things. So drug development process in itself is a very complex process. It's a long process and a complex process. It's said that sometime it takes close to 10 years to for a drug to be identified and until the time it get launched. So it usually takes 10 years time. Now, obviously, with newer technologies, AI models, and a lot of upskilling, this time period has gone reduced, but the process sort of remains pretty much the same. Now let's talk about what are those stages, I would say. So first stage is discovery and development stage. So you know target identification. So some of you who are BTech biotechs or B pharmas, you probably would have heard about target identification. So here, you know, the labs, the scientists, the researchers, basically, they identify what gene they want to target, what protein they want to target, uh, uh, or cell they want to target, basically. And then based on that, so first they do the target identification. Then they look for compounds. With this target identification, they try to look into the compounds. After the target identification, they look into the compounds which could benefit within by connecting with the antigen, the antibody connecting with the antigen, or directly the drug doing the lysis and all those sort of things. Um, so those lock and key kind of things. So they look into hundreds and thousands of molecules, compounds, to find a potential molecule which uh, can affect that target. Obviously that depends on a lot of factors. So uh, giving an example, um, in IgA nephropathy, there is an antibody called IgA, interglobulin A, which gets accumulated in your nephrons, basically. So it has been identified that complement inhibitors and factor alternate pathways, basically. So these are, again, I will not go into those basics also, but yeah, those pathways basically, or those you know those pathways are involved and in the cell cycle of the of that molecule or that region or the target, basically. So based on that, the researchers identify the compounds. Now, then the third process is within discovery and development. The third process is lead optimization. Here, you know, researchers, what they do is they optimize. They So they have selected, let's say, 10 molecules, which could be potential, which have potentials to target or cure the disease or do a treatment of the disease. Um, so based on that, they based on their efficacy, safety, immunogenicity, and lots of other factors, they do the optimization of the lead molecule basically. So out of those 10, whichever is the best runner basically, or showing the maximum benefit. So that's basically the discovery and the development stage, which is, as I said, it's divided into three subgroups. Now comes preclinical stage. So ideally, preclinical stage is of three sub stages basically, or three types, however you want to do it. Uh, so first is in vitro study, in vitro analysis. So from the name itself, in vitro and in vivo. So there are two types, in vitro and in vivo. We have all studied that in our basics. So when we talk about in vitro, testing drug molecules in the cell culture to assess the biological activity, and the immunogenicity, toxicity, all those sort of activities are done in the cell lines basically, or cell cultures basically. And then are in vivo. So when we in vivo itself, as it says, that in body. So in vivo doesn't mean a human body. In vivo is basically in the animal bodies. So again, the drug or the optimized lead molecule, which we spoke about in the previous stage, basically the drug discovery stage. At that molecule is basically studied in animals for its safety and efficacy. Uh, its immunogenicity, toxicity, all those things are studied in the living organisms and animal models. Now, just an interesting fact is that these animal models are now a lot of AI tools, because we have done over the years, we have done a lot of genome mapping for mouses and other primates and all. So now this process is actually sort of replaced, or being replaced, I would rather say, being replaced uh, by a lot of AI models, which obviously is good for environmental purposes, saving lives of animals, and to reduce animal cruelty. So doing that, a lot of models are there which can help you replicate the action of the drug in the virtual environment. So yeah, basically that's in vivo. At the moment, it's done in humans. Sorry, in animals. So let's consider that. Now the third type is PKPD. So I hope you've learned about the ADMA mechanism basically, which is absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. So this PKPD is basically, so we in the PKPD analysis, we're trying to understand how the drug is absorbed, distributed among the body, what kind of metabolism it takes, or how much time it takes to to break it down by the body, and then excrete it out. So ADMA and then its effect on the biology of the patient or human basically. So this is called PKPD, PKPD analysis. Then after PKPD analysis, companies go for IND, which is investigational new drug application. So what is IND is that companies, before starting their clinical trials, when I say clinical trials, it's obviously human trials. So companies starting human trials, they go to FDA, EMA, detailing, give the details of preclinical findings, preclinical study, and then give their plan, give the plan that how they want to go ahead and plan the studies, basically the human studies. So that's called IND application. IND is investigational new drug application. Then comes your clinical stage. So clinical stage is divided into four. Okay, so about clinical stage, about clinical, I will take us, I will make an additional video talking very detailedly in depth about all the phases. So here I'm just going to cover the very broader basics, basically. So clinical trials are divided into um, five phases, basically. One is phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So some of you might not even know what is phase 0. So phase 0 is a microdosing, and when we say microdosing, it means very small dose. Again, I'll be covering more details in our clinical trial video. Then comes phase 1. Phase 1 is a small trial. It has small doesn't mean that it has something to do with the small dosing. No, small means the patient pool is smaller. um, we usually dependent, it is dependent on the indication, but if you talk about a normal indication which has higher epidemiology, higher number of patients, so for that close to 50-60 patients is a usual number. But if you talk about orphan drug designation or orphan diseases, in that scenario, sometimes the number can go down up to let's say 10 patients, 15 patients also. In the cases of CAR Ts, or gene therapy, cell therapies, again the number can go to very small number, small number of patients. Then comes phase 2, which are medium-sized trials. They usually assess the efficacy, safety of the drug. Sorry, one thing I forgot to tell you is in phase 1, they usually assess the safety, dosing, and toxicity, PKPD also in some cases. Then comes phase 3. Phase 3 is a bigger trial. It's and in most cases it's global trial. In bigger indication, it's global trial, where the concept or the idea is that more and more diversity of patients get recruited, and usually 1,000 to 3,000, 4,000 patients get recruited. But again, it depends on the indication. If it is a rare indication or an indication, then in those scenarios sometimes even 100-150 patients globally is considered to be a big trial also. After phase 3, so a lot of students, when they interview, I have interviewed them, um, they always say that after phase 4, companies file for the approval, which is not the case. I always ask this question that after which phase um, you file for the approval, and they usually say after phase 4, and when I try to confuse them, then they get confused, basically. So it's not that. Application is filed for approval after phase 3. That application is called NDA or BLA. So in case of biologics, cell therapies, gene therapies, it's BLA, biologic licensing agreement, sorry, licensing application, and for or new drug application, basically. So NDA. It's done with, again, US sorry, in US FDA, in Europe EMA, or in case of India it's DCGI or CDSCO. So I'll talk about this later, what is included on all those things. So yeah, so that's that. Then comes the regulatory review. So now you have submitted all the clinical results and everything to the regulatory body, let's say FDA, and then FDA is going to take some time. There is a regulatory process. Again, we're going to talk more about them in the other videos. So regulatory process, it's there. So FDA will take a decent amount of time and to review those details about the study, and based on that, either they will approve or reject the drug. How it happens, the process, I'll discuss it later. Then we have phase 4. So phase 4 is done after a product is approved, basically. So in that case, once approved, it enters the market, but it is closely being monitored, long-term safety, efficacy, and the other details, optimal use, in which population it is showing better results. All those sort of things are observed during phase 4, and phase 4 is actually, to be very specific, or phase 4 is, I believe, is one of the very crucial phases, not just because it reports adverse events, but you generate a lot of real world evidence data from these phase 4 studies. Again, we're going to talk about it at a great length in detail over the next videos. So phase 4 is also called post-marketing surveillance. That's the reason it has got a name, because after marketing, post-marketing, you're surveilling the molecule. So that's why it's called post-marketing surveillance, PMS. Okay. So then there is manufacturing and quality control. So scaling up your production to meet your demand, your commercial demand, and then so you start manufacturing. FDA keeps because we have taken an FDA exam now. FDA keeps a close eye on the manufacturing capabilities, the process you're following. They sometimes do visit the facilities. They see the facilities, and then they sometimes issue warning letters, observations also. So to maintain the quality, and during the manufacturing process, that's how it's done. Then comes the next process or next step is marketing and distribution. A product is launched, it is sold to, or sorry, it's shown to and described to healthcare practitioners. In some cases, patients also. It gets distributed via multiple channels like pharmacies, specialty pharmacies, and then via hospitals if it is kind of that specialty medication or injectable. If it is a scheduled drug, then it's very highly monitored. So yeah, marketing and distribution. Then another thing is it's patent and market exclusivity, which is also a very important stage in a drug development process, because usually when you do the lead identification, you usually file for the patent at that point of time, and in some time patent body assesses it and issues the patent. So what does that patent mean? Patent basically is kind of a document which says that you are the innovator of that molecule and you have gotten exclusivity to market that product. No one can copy this product at for a certain time period. So you are protected by competition. You have gotten exclusivity, and why companies or why regulatory bodies issue these patents is because company has spent some decent amount of money in developing these molecules, and yeah, and to protect them and to encourage R&D and research, companies do give these regulatory bodies do give these companies patents and the protection. Just a second. Now there are so this whole process, this drug development process is very intensive process. It requires a lot of infrastructure, cost, time. So as I started with the video, it's estimated that it usually takes 10 years basically to develop a product. So while in that 10-year time period, there are a number of scientists, researchers, and then regulatory bodies, clinical trials. If you're doing clinical trials, then doctors, patients, supply chain during the trial. So a lot of things, a lot of moving parts. So obviously everything requires cost. So developing a molecule, from taking it from the early R&D stage to a marketed molecule require substantial amount of money. Again, some studies even consider it takes billions of dollars, at least $1 billion to develop a molecule, and to market it. Till the time it is marketed, then there is a very high risk of failure as well. Now you'll ask me that what's the failure. So see, there is a high risk of failure that the drug might not work, it gets failed, it doesn't get approved because the results are not that great. There are higher safety concerns. Efficacy is good, but there are safety concerns. So again, there is a huge risk of failure, and that specifically is the reason. Then there are a lot of regulatory compliances and ethical compliances or ethical issues, which poses a lot of challenge in the drug development, because see, there are multiple groups which say is that pharma companies should not test drug on animals. So that's an ethical consideration. Then there are regulatory compliances. You have to adhere to certain terms and conditions given by FDA or EMA or CDSCO. I was just giving you an example earlier in terms of manufacturing quality control. So you have to, maintain a certain quality, maintain a lot of adherences, compliances at your site. So yeah, that's the issue. That's also a risk. So yeah, this is basically a whole drug development process, and if one step is also disturbed or displaced, the whole process gets disturbed or displaced, and it raises a lot of questions rather than giving answers, and then it makes life difficult for the company, for the regulators, and for everyone. So yeah, one needs to be very compliant, follow the rules and everything. So yeah, this was drug development process, how drugs starts and it gets marketed. There is a lot beyond this also. Like for example, then there are life cycle managements. The extension of patents, loss of introduction of generics and biosimilars. So there are a lot of things in this drug development process, but at the moment, let's stop here, um, and take a pause. In my next video, I will try to talk about more about clinical trials, and then probably how and where to find this information. What are the applications of clinical trials in a CI industry, basically in doing a competitive intelligence or even consulting, not just CI, overall consulting also, whether it's market access, market research, anything of those sorts. What clinical trial, clinical research plays as a role, and how it It contributes to the commercialization, even in the key messaging. It plays a very crucial role. So we'll discuss about clinical trials in more detail, and yeah, any questions? Again, every time I say this, if you have any questions, please drop in a comment or drop in a mail to me in the comment section, or you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn and message me there. So yeah, thank you. Have a great day. Keep learning. Bye bye.